Hi, everybody. Larry Taylor here with the Word in Focus. I'm calling this series Mythbusters. And of course, like all of these things, these are my opinions, but my opinions are based on research and thought. And as far as I know, they are, in these areas, reflecting accuracy. At least that's my goal and my hope. So, Mythbusters. One myth that I hear bantered about now and then is that I hear references to vast numbers of lazy people who don't want to work, and how government is structured to take care of them, and how those who are willing to work have to therefore carry the burden of this large group of people who don't want to work. That is a myth. I'm quite certain that it is, at least based on my experience. I've spent a lot of time in some of the poorest areas of our nation's cities and rural areas, amongst poverty-stricken people of various ethnicities, people of European heritage, people of African heritage, people of Latinx heritage, people of Asian heritage. And I have yet to meet a person who is unemployed simply because they're lazy. Of course, I'm not maintaining that there is no one out there who would fit into that category. But the idea that there are vast numbers of people who just don't feel like working, I don't see any evidence of that. The poor people that I have met, the poor people that I know, the ones who are unemployed. There's a lot of poor people who are the working poor, trying to support a family on part-time jobs and minimum wage and no benefits, that kind of thing. But among those who are unemployed, the vast majority of them, again, in my experience, are people who are disabled. In one way or another, they are unable to work, or they have insufficient education and skills, or insufficient access to transportation, so that they can find work that they are qualified to do. Sometimes there are jobs available, but the person doesn't have the ability to do those jobs and won't be hired. They apply, but they're not hired for those kinds of jobs. If they happen to get one, it doesn't last long because they're not able to do it. They simply don't have the skills. They don't have the ability. So I think we need to be really careful not to make these broad generalizations. Vast numbers of people out there who don't want to work. Lazy people. I don't believe that's the case. I've not met people that fit into that category. And as I said, I have spent quite a bit of time around people who are living in deep poverty, some of them in abject poverty. And the reason that they are, as I said, is either because they don't have the skills for the jobs that are available. And by the way, that's becoming an increasing problem as our whole system becomes more and more technologically complicated. It requires more and more training and education. And the simple laboring kinds of jobs are becoming less available. So people either fit into that category, or many that I've met are simply disabled. They are physically unable to hold those jobs. In the Bible, God has a great deal to say about us having compassion for the poor, us caring for the poor, us considering it a privilege to assist, to help, to encourage those who may be disabled or perhaps don't have the skills to hold down the jobs. I think there are some legitimate arguments as to how to best go about that, and whether that should be tied to job training programs or whatever it might be. But be that as it may, that generalization that out there someplace, not in my neighborhood, but out there someplace, there are these hordes of people that are just lazy, that simply is not true. And it's usually based on people who have occasionally, very occasionally, driven through some economically challenged areas and seen people hanging out on porch steps or wherever who look able-bodied. And then the assumption is made that those people simply don't want to work, not considering that perhaps jobs are not available. Perhaps they don't have the training and skills to do the jobs that are available. Perhaps they don't have the transportation to get to the jobs that are available. Perhaps they're not as able-bodied as they look as we drive by. We need to guard our hearts against being judgmental. Thanks for joining me.